So, continuing onward in our spiritual warfare department here on my little corner of the World Wide Web, I'd like to teach you the 5 stages of spiritual illness or imbalance. Some might just call it the 5 stages of possession. Okay? When someone is possessed or going through some kind of spiritual affliction, it's usually because they're already soulfully not well. And this usually trickles down in a number of different ways, mentally, emotionally, physically, and soulfully, leading to spiritual sickness. Okay? So I'm going to break down those levels for you. This is not pertaining to any kind of religion, because spiritual nasties, demons, spiritual sickness doesn't really adhere to religion. Okay, so we all are souls and spirits, and we are all prone to the same things. We can all get sick, we can all be well. Okay, so this has nothing to do with your religious practice. This has everything to do with your soulful and spiritual one, and your spiritual hygiene. Okay, so the first stage of spiritual sickness is usually temptation. Now, early on in my practice as a minister, as a metaphysician, I always thought there were 4 stages. I always thought the first stage was infestation, because that's what I learned in my paranormal studies, in my paranormal investigation work. I always thought there was just 4. And until I heard a priest talk about this last year, I want to say. I think it was last year. Might have been early this year. And it was a priest that introduced this original first stage to me, which makes more sense, right? Because when you think of an infestation, you think something's already gotten in, right? But how? Right? So this priest said the first actual stage is temptation. So when he put that puzzle piece in front of me, I was like, well, that makes more sense, because you need some kind of invitation, right? For something to get in. You know, you need some kind of circumstance or environment or action to take place for you to be in touch with some kind of harmful bacteria, right? Or germ for your soul, right? So temptation is the first stage, because we need to understand what tempts us to stray from our soul well-being. We need to understand what tempts us to stray from our balance, to stray from our stability, to stray from our morals, to stray from our values, okay? We need to understand what tempts us, okay? It could be your usual extremes. You know, we have our extremes where some people like to drink, some people do drugs, some people watch porn, some people have sex addictions, some people are prone to get very angry easily and act out violently. Some people are very argumentative. They have short fuses, basically. But there are other temptations too that are insidious, you know, so we need to understand whatever it is that tempts us to stray from our path of balance, okay? To stray from our well-being, to stray from our peace, even more so. If it forces you to stray from your peace, it's a temptation. You have to understand why it tempts you. Okay, so like I often use the example of people pleasing, okay, because that is a temptation. That can be an addiction. I don't think enough people understand how easily it is to get addicted to stress and all kinds of stress. Okay, when you have cortisol, which is the stress hormone, the stress chemical compound running through your body all the time, your body gets used to it. It gets used to being produced. It gets used to you being stressed all the time. And you just get used to it. And that's why some people can't just sit still. That's why some people need constant distractions, need something going on all the time. And when they are given a moment of peace, they just can't enjoy it because they're addicted to some kind of stressor. Okay? People pleasing is one of those stressors. It's a temptation to please. It's a temptation to ease your anxiety. It's a temptation to get some kind of false sense of attention, you know, because you may feel like you're not worthy unless you're doing something. Okay? That's a temptation. You need to understand the mindset behind your temptation, whatever it is. What is the trigger behind your temptation? Understand that your triggers can be your personal trainers. We could talk about that another time, though. But your triggers can be your personal trainers. They could teach you a lot about yourself. And if you understand what the trigger is behind your temptation, you'll be able to better put it in check. Okay? I'm not saying it'll just go away right away, but you'll be able to better put it in check and stop throwing yourself off balance all the time, and stop putting yourself in a inauthentic position. Okay? So once we understand what our temptation is, we limit the amount of infestation. But we're talking about how spiritual sickness happens, so we're going to move forward. So once that temptation has been fed probably more than a few times, we get infestation, which is the entry point. This is where energetic, spiritual, parasitic kind of energy starts to get in. It starts to infiltrate our life, enter our home, enter our minds, enter our life, okay? Every aspect of our life. It starts to kind of weasel its way in. And this is a subtle thing, okay? And this is why sometimes this even goes overlooked. We overlook our temptations because we think, oh, I'm just human, right? Yes, you are, but you're here to learn, okay? So you can't use that excuse too long, all right? You are human, and yes, you go through things, and yes, you have weaknesses. So do I. We all do. Okay, but it's important through discipline to understand what those weaknesses are so they don't become a crutch for you. Okay? Now, the infestation or the entry point or the infiltration point can also be very sneaky because it can just seem like an off feeling that you're feeling around you. It can seem like you just seem a little scattered. You seem a little more easily thrown off, like the vibe feels off. You may hear sounds in your house. You may have weird stuff going on and you just think, oh, it's just paranormal stuff, whatever. I can't tell you how many times in the work I've done that I've seen this happen, that people just think, oh, I just have a ghost in the house. And I tell them, well, it's better to be safe than sorry. You might have a friendly spirit. You might have a non-threatening spirit in your house. It could be a spirit of the land that's just there. It could even be a relative that has vowed to be one of your guides, okay? But it's better to be safe than sorry, and discern and bring somebody in who can help you figure it out. Because in tranquil spirits and trickster spirits, demonic entities like to pretend that they're your friend because they're not going to come into your life, obviously, in tranquil. Okay? A thief doesn't want you to know they've broken into your house, right? So it's better to have somebody come in who might know a little more, who might be able to discern a little bit better, and tell you what you got going on, okay? And most of the times, in terms of spiritual demonic activity or just lower level spiritual activity, parasitic activity, it's due to us. We attract it. Because it can't get in without an invitation. And this is not to shame anybody if you're going through this, okay? It's just how it works. They can't just get into your life or into your space without some kind of invite. Even the most subtle invite is enough, okay? So infestation can come off a little bit insidious, sneaky, okay? But it will feel a little off. Like you'll just know, like something will just feel off. Okay, so when you start feeling that, obviously cleanse yourself, start observing back to when this feeling started happening, okay, and be like, what was going on before I started feeling like things were different around me, within me, in my home, like what was going on in my life. That's usually what I do when I'm helping people through these things. I ask them, when did this activity start? When did you start feeling off? How long ago was this? Even if it goes back as far as 4 years ago. Okay, let's see. Well, what was happening 4 years ago? And then they'll tell me, well, this was going, like, for instance, I had somebody who said they were going through a divorce. Okay, that's definitely an entry point for you to maybe emotionally go through and do some things that maybe you wouldn't have done before if you weren't all vulnerable and angry and upset, and you obviously invited some intranquil spirit into your house. It happens. Okay? So it's important when you start feeling really off in general. This could just be holistically too. If you just start out of nowhere feeling really weird, off, I know that life can be busy, so sometimes we're not really paying attention to patterns, but patterns are in everything, so start paying attention to them. When you just start feeling off out of nowhere, for more than a day especially, start tracing back your steps, okay? And just be like, when did this start? When was the last moment that I was feeling myself? And what started happening in between? What did that trigger in me? How could have I attracted this energy into my life right now? And then you can banish it. At that point, when infestation happens, you're still at a good point where you could say, I rebuke this, I banish you, get out of here. You cleanse yourself, you cleanse your home, you bless and anoint your home. Take all them necessary steps that you need to do, because you're still in an early enough stage that you can just clear this schnit out, okay? But if you do like some people do and ignore it, or try to just push it out, or you think you're crazy, or whatever, you avoid it in some way, we move on to the next stage, which is oppression. Okay? So now you've had this entity or entities or energies, spirits, whatever you want to call them, really watching you and hanging out with you, getting to know you and your habits, your rituals, routines, paying attention to your responses, and your responses and reactions really do dictate a lot too. Okay? I'm going to actually write that down so I could do that in another video for us, because that's important to understand about karma. Like what it really is. Okay. So now that you've had these spiritual energies in your home really paying attention to you, they know how to oppress you. Okay? And they can't oppress you if you're not already oppressing yourself. Again, way back to temptation, right? Nothing and even like I said in our evil eye video, okay? Nothing that happens to you spiritually can't happen without your consent in some way, okay? So if you're being oppressed spiritually or attacked spiritually, it's usually a call to self-help. And a lot of times these spiritual energies, entities, even people, don't want you to get that far. But I'm telling you now, I just gave you a spiritual life hack, okay? Even if you're being spiritually attacked in some way, right now, take it as a moment to level up and upgrade, okay? Because what these things or people don't realize that they're doing is that they are showing you where you got to work on yourself, where you got to discipline yourself, where you got to heal something. So like, let's say they're really barreling at your head. The oppression stage is when they really start attacking you, okay? They really start everything that just feels wrong, like it's just everything is happening to just get you to be your own worst enemy, okay? But let's say like one of those things is they're really beating on you with guilt, right? Putting you in situations that make you feel like shit, reminding you of situations that make you feel like shit, and so much more. They can't do that without your consent. They can't do that without the fact that you're probably already doing that to yourself. That you probably haven't forgiven yourself. That you haven't sat with your own stuff long enough to really go through it and process it. So they're going to keep coming back because your spirit is waving the flag of, come over here. You know? And again, this is not to shame. This is just from total experience, okay? Personal too, not just professional, personal too, okay? But when you get in that mindset of like, I'm being shown stuff that could help me, these are actually fruits that I can utilize for my healing, my personal development, the oppression can start to lessen when you get smart about why it's happening, okay? When you get smart about why it's happening, you can get smart about how to fix it, okay? So oppression is where they really start hitting you hard in the places you're already weak. So when you look at that, you could be like, okay, here's an area where I can strengthen myself. Time to call in God. Time to call in my guardian angel, my spiritual team of benevolent forces to help me. Time to get quiet. Time to start being still. Time to start lessening my distractions as much as possible so I can actually work on this. Okay? Because you don't want to oppress yourself. You want to be your own safe place, a place of strength. You want to know yourself and heal yourself. Okay? So you could stop that oppression in its tracks. You can lessen its damage by understanding that it's actually showing you things about yourself that need observation and awareness and attention and healing and actual presence. And the moment you start taking that power back, everything else starts to go away, and you can rebuke and you can cleanse and you can clear. Okay? So just pay attention to that. We also don't realize how we open doorways. Okay? This is important in the oppression stage as well. When you've been down certain roads that were not good for you, even if you've been away from them for 10 years, that's great. There's a lot of paths I've opened that I'm no longer a part of, and I'm happy about it. But the thing is, when you've opened up that channel, you're familiar with it. And they're familiar with you. There are spirits attached to everything. Emotions, vices, virtues, pathways. Okay, so when you've opened not so good pathways for yourself, engaged with not good people, done some things you're not proud of, but like you've been done with it, right? But you still have those lines open. And sometimes those spirits like to try to test you. They like to try to poke at it to see if you've overcome it. So again, all of this is just a big life lesson. All of this can be something that's happening for your benefit, not your downfall. God doesn't want to see you fail, but God does like to see if his kids have learned. Okay? So, just wanted to put that out there too, if you're going through something like this. Now, if we don't heal the oppressive stage, if we don't take care of this problem, and we allow the oppression to continue and continue and continue for a long time, and we become our own worst enemy, and we don't really sit and work on this, and again, you don't have to do this alone. You can call on a friend, call on a spiritual advisor, okay? Call on someone you trust to help you through this, okay? If you even need to talk to me, come talk to me, okay? I'd be more than happy to help you through this, okay? But if you don't deal with this, it can lead to obsession, which is the fourth stage. Obsession is what we see as mental illness, okay? Mental illness and spiritual affliction go hand in hand, my friends, because you are a full-on temple, okay? It's not just here. This affects your heart space affects your body health affects your soul, and your spiritual well-being and connection, okay? So, obsession is what we would perceive as just a mental illness. Someone dealing with high anxiety, suicidal thoughts, obsessive thinking, rage attacks, even just hearing voices and terrible insomnia and things like that, okay? It's an obsessive spirit that is attached, that has fed on your energy, your time, because you haven't dealt with it, and you haven't dealt with the stuff inside that's feeding it. Okay? This can lead to lots of things. Okay? Like everything I just said, self-explanatory. High anxiety, panic attacks, a general sense of unease, you can't just operate or function normally. Suicidal thoughts, especially when you don't have a history of depression or suicide, deep depression, okay? Rage attacks where you just get violent or just want to break things or yell or, yeah. It's because now you've gotten really, really sick. You haven't dealt with these issues internally and externally, spiritually and soulfully, energetically, okay? So this is like that red flag stage, because this is the point where a lot of people get desperate and they give up. And then when they give up, the spirit takes over. The entity completely sickens, weakens, infiltrates, takes over. And then they are no longer in control of their vehicle fully. Okay? They are no longer in control. They've given it over. That's possession. That's the last stage. Okay? The final stage after obsession. And that's when you have just, out of desperation, out of weakness, out of sickness, out of just absolute tiredness from whatever you've been going through, but that you also haven't been dealing with properly. The spirit, entity, energy, whatever you want to call it, demon, takes the reins. And you are no longer in control of yourself. Okay? This stage, the obsession stage, as well as the possession stage, is where you would require someone to come in and help you with this. Because now you are not in your vehicle, and you need somebody to basically get in and take care of the imposter that's in your vehicle. Okay? You don't want to get to that stage. So that's why it's very important that we work on ourselves. Now I'm not talking about like, it has to be a grueling process all the time where you feel like you're broken. Okay? Just make healthy choices. Okay? Sometimes we use that term healing as well, in a very, I don't want to say harsh, but it just feels less simple, kind of way. I know that there are some things that are not simple. Trust me, I get it. But sometimes, we don't have to go into the deep end right away, right? Sometimes it can just start by just saying, I'm going to choose to make healthier choices today because I wasn't making them all year. What can I start doing now that's healthier for me? It could start by, instead of staying up late talking to someone that drains your energy, you could be like, okay, well, I'm cutting my phone time off at this time because I don't want to go to bed with all this stuff in my head that we talked about. It could be just eating better, having healthier snacks in the house when you emotionally eat. Okay? Acknowledging that you emotionally eat, but also acknowledging I'm not ready to touch those waters yet, but I can also do something a little bit healthier for myself so that I'm not eating a box of Oreos. Okay? Choosing to just make healthy choices every day is healing. Okay? Whatever that means for you, what is a healthier choice you can start making now to really work on yourself and discipline yourself and love yourself now before it gets really bad. Sometimes, too often we wait till things get really out of control to be like, oh, I should probably do something. If you start now with your maintenance work, your spiritual hygiene, your mental hygiene, your emotional hygiene, your physical hygiene, if you start now with little steps, just little things that will make you feel better because you weren't doing them, you will avoid so much of this spiritual sickness that happens to so many people. Trust me, I've done this for over 10 years. I've seen a lot of spiritually sick people. Okay? I've worked with the average person too who just needed some, minor maintenance, some coaching, some, spiritual counseling, energy tune-ups, things like that. But I've also seen some very dark ends of this work. Okay? And it usually is always the case that they wait and they wait and they wait and they ignore until it gets really bad. And they didn't have to. But it's a condition. It's a condition that's put in our heads to just put it off. Well, make yourself a priority too. You can still make your family, your friends, your job a priority because I know those are important, but put yourself on that list of people that is also important, because if you're not in working condition, nothing works. If you're not working on yourself, nothing works. Okay? So just start by making healthier choices every day. One healthy choice every day will lead to just so many long-term benefits, and you'll avoid so much of this. Okay? The spiritual world is real. Okay? You have a spiritual eye. You can see that if you really choose to. There are spirits driving around here all the time. I will always say that when we are dealing in the spiritual, we're not just dealing with the ethers. Okay? We're not just dealing with demons or fairies or whatever. Those are there. But we're spirits too. Okay? So remember that. Your spiritual hygiene is just as important as anything. If something feels off, trust it and do something about it. Don't use your old coping mechanisms and give in to old temptations to stray. Because that off feeling, if put off long enough, can lead to something worse. And you don't deserve that. So I hope this video educated you in some way, shape, or form. I hope it found you in the way it was meant to. It's starting to get dark here right now, so my lighting's a little off, so I'm going to hop off here right now. But I hope this video found you and fed you the way it was meant to. If you have questions, if you have anything you'd like to add to this discussion, comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.